This is your Professor Ian. This is a short video talking about story number 2. So let's go to the modules page. And as always, my page looks a little bit different than yours, but not too different. So let's go down to what I have. There we go. No, that's story number 1. Story number 2, final draft. There we go. So story number 2. Story number 2 is meant to practice working on theme, topic, mood, tone, that kind of thing. For your first story, I want you to practice or think about using, plot structure, conventional plot structure, and literary elements like setting and character, and really focus on some of those, those ideas that we've been looking at the first chunk of the course. So for the second story, there's a timeline for it, as you'll see. Right, there's a proposal, peer editing workshop, cover letter, and the final draft. Again, 5 to 10 pages. That's relatively flexible. If you want to write something a little bit shorter, as long as it's something you're happy with, I'm open for that. I'd prefer you not to go too far over 10 pages. Part of the challenge of these stories is to tell your tale in a relatively short format. This is a short fiction course. You can always expand. You could always turn in half a story if you really wanted to. If you have the perfect story, but it's more like a 30-page story, I'm okay with that. I just want you to be happy with your own product. Anyways, so the rationale. So in the first story, I asked you to think of like an event, a life-changing event, and try to plot it out and try to think about the characters and setting. For the second paper, I want you to start kind of in the opposite direction. I want you to start thinking about like your end goal almost, right? I want you to think about an idea or a feeling, a mood you want to explore in a piece of fiction, right? So as I say here, start with a theme, like a message, something you want to convey to the reader. And that doesn't have to be something like super specific, like, everybody needs to stop and smell the roses. That's also super cliched, but it could be something more vague. It could be a mood, or it could be something specific. Like we saw in the story of an hour, that short story, the main theme of that short story is about the limitations of marriage, and especially for women, but for everybody, right? The limitations of marriage is a human institution, the way it limits our choices and our freedoms. So that was her theme, and that's how she started. Or maybe it isn't how she started, maybe that's how the story developed, but this is where I want you to start. What do you want to explore? What idea, what mood, what theme? And then build from there. So as I say, it doesn't mean you have to argue for a specific point of view. You could explore a mood and a topic and a theme in a more open way. Think about like hills like white elephants. I don't think there's like a specific argument that Hemingway is making about things. He's not coming out against abortion or for abortion. He's not saying that all men are jerks, right, or anything like that. But he is definitely exploring this theme, and there's a definite tone, the way you're supposed to feel about the man, and this unspoken conversation that they're having, the troubles that they have, talking about something very important for them as a couple and as human beings, and that you can extrapolate from there. But it's less overt than the story of an hour, where it's very much Kate Chopin making an argument about marriage and its limitations. So that's what I want you to try to think about for this one. Think about tone, mood, and theme. Start there and build backwards. And as I note here, you can write any genre, any POV, any style. If you want to write a first-person science fiction, that's fine. Third-person Western, that's totally fine too. Anything you want to do. Okay, so that's the instructions. There's some specific tips here. Remember, you can get a bonus mark if you take this to work with a tutor on it. Let's go back to modules. I want to show you the proposal as well. So back down to week 4. Proposal. There's a cover letter, almost exactly like the first one. The instructions are almost identical. I think are identical, except for the changed dates and such. So this one, if you click here, it'll open up a Word document. Let me just open this up. Here we go. I'll bring it over here. Okay. Enable editing. So it's similar to the first one that we did. There's some tables I want you to fill out, thinking about options, weighing them, a couple of questions. So starting with topic, what topics are you interested in writing about? This is very open and vague, or broad, I should say. It could be, gender, sexuality, relationships between father and sons, the broad topics that a story is about, right? The story of an hour is about gender relationships, but it's also about marriage, and it's about families, and it's about mourning, right? It's got all these big topics, but the theme is more specific. So once you come up with some topics you'd like to write about in a broad way, choose your favorite three, and then fill out this table. So, say I said sacrifice, honor, and father-son relationships. That could be one, two, three things I'm interested in writing about. And you can combine these in your story, right? This table is just meant to help you get into some more specifics and think about the difference between topic and theme, like we're thinking about in this part of the course. So I chose sacrifice, second. That's my example here. That could be down here. And then why this topic interests you. Okay, and so why this interests me, sacrifice. Some people argue that everyone acts out of self-interest. For example, Freakonomics, that book. I think this is false. Some people don't act out of self-interest. And a good technique to think about when you're thinking about the theme for your story is to try to think about a new take on a topic, right? There's a million stories about sacrifice or about father-son relationships. But if you can put a new spin on it, unique spin, a unique take on it, that makes for an interesting read. If I just tell you the same story over and over again, it's not very interesting, right? And this isn't super interesting, but you get my point. If you put a new spin on things or take a controversial take on something, that's more useful to think about for theme. What you would like to say about this topic. So this is getting more specifically into theme. So my example, I think people are willing to sacrifice themselves for their ideals and not just personal gain. So I want to explore that theme in my story. And then the third question, how could you write about this theme? Your one sentence elevator pitch. And an elevator pitch just means if you were in an elevator for, however long that takes, 30 seconds, a minute, and you had to convince someone of the importance of your idea, what would you say? So my elevator pitch, my one sentence summary of how I might write about sacrifice in a short story. Okay, a science fiction story about a group of scientists who fly their ship into an asteroid to save a new moon base. Okay, so just like my plot in one sentence that would explore this theme. And I would do that 3 times. So once for sacrifice, once for father-son relationships, one for gender inequality or whatever. Okay, do that 3 times and choose your favorite and fill out this table. This is getting more specific, thinking about the protagonist story arc, right? How will the main character change over the course of the story? Because remember, all stories are character driven, so the change in your character over the course of the story is most often the way that your theme is developed, right? What does your character learn or fail to learn in the course of the story? And how does that change them or not change them? And it should change them, that kind of thing. Mood and how you will create this. So what emotional impact do you want to have this story to have? And how are you going to do that? Are you going to do that with gloomy adjectives, or are you going to do that like sensory detail like we saw in the story of an hour, right, where Louise is looking out the window from her chair? And then tone and how you will create this. So what is your attitude towards the theme and the characters, right? So you might think about the story, all the things you'll never do, and the way that Camille Acker uses the narrative voice to both sympathize with the protagonist and yet make fun of her in certain ways, and the kind of dramatic irony she creates and the effect that has. But anyways, however you're going to create tone. As you can see with this story, second story, we're thinking about, mood, tone, and theme. That's what we're concentrating on. That's what this proposal is meant to get you to think about. And then the general questions, which are the same from the first one. What do you want your readers to learn? And then think about the logistics of the writing process. What challenges might you face? Where and when will you write this? Because oftentimes we don't think about this last question. We just think, oh, I'll write it, in the next couple weeks. And then next couple weeks go by because we haven't really thought about, okay, well, my kids are awake at this hour, or I have to work at this hour, or I can't get on the computer at this hour, or whatever, right? So anyways, those are the instructions for story number 2. Please do email me if you have any questions or concerns.